Hi, this is Terry from Fabric Junction in Sturgis, South Dakota, and today we're going to show you another one of our 6.5-inch blocks that we have been blogging, and with the intent of making a big quilt out of them. Here are the blocks that I have made out of the one called At the Square. What I found intriguing about this, and it's really easy to see on these, is the arrows that are created in this block. From that block, I used it to make this potholder. Now the arrows are still there, they're just not quite as visible as the contrast that I did on the other one. Now the block is very simple is the word I want. It's very simple to put together. You have a center square, you have your rectangles that you will sew together, and when you do sew your rectangles together, make sure that they are, if I remember right, I think it's a 2.5 inch square, because mine kind of came out just a smidgen. I trimmed them just tiny bit to make sure that they were at 2.5. Now the sections, corner sections in our block are all hourglass. And I'm going to do a real quick reminder on how we create our hourglass. I use the seam allowance tool. It's a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I place it point to point, and I draw a line on both sides. Now that line is our stitch line. And I either stitch right on it or as close as I can get to it from the seam allowance side. I try to stay away from the block side because I don't want my blocks to get too small. Okay, I need to get a couple of them done. So we will chain piece. Get them to go in there. There we go. Set up. When I get to the end, I just do a quick turn, pull the thread just a little bit to give me room, and then I send it back through. So the first step is creating our half square triangle, which we've done many times. And now we will cut and press. I'm going to press them to the dark. Okay, now I want to take 2 of them, and we're going to mark another stitch line from corner to corner. And when I mark from inside, from the center outward. Now this one I know is really dark, so I'll went over it a few times to make sure that I had it dark enough so that I could see it. Sometimes I grab my white pencil and mark with my white pencil. But today I didn't do that. So anyway, we're going to line them up opposite sides together and push the seams right up to each other. And when you do that, you can start to match it up here, your sides will start to match up, and you can feel them nice and snug. And to be on the safe side, if you put your finger or something there and you pull one back, you should get a nice intersection. As you can tell, I just kind of keep working it until I'm comfortable with what I feel. Once again, I get to the end, I just whip it around, and I'm going to send it right back through. The other one. We're going to separate and press again, and we should have our hourglass units for our at the square block. Next, last step, get rid of all those little dog ears that we've created. And then we can see the start of our arrows. And what a nice simple way to make the arrows without being real complicated. Once I have all my parts, and then I'm going to sew it together, and I've shown you how to sew these together. Just treat it like you were going to sew a 9 patch, because that's what you now have. You have your 9 squares, so you sew it together. One of the things that I did a little bit different on this particular one is when I went to do my border, I thought I'm going to change this up just a little bit. So my pieces are 1.5 by 7.5. And the reason I did that is if we look on here, the first one lines up with the edge of my block, but it actually goes over. Next one lines up here and extends over. It's easier to see the over. This one extends over, and this one does. The easiest way to do that is pick one and start sewing. So if this was actually sewn together, I'm going to pull it together a little bit. It would have some left over. Sew to about right here. Leave this little tail unsewn. I'm going to turn it back to let you know. Leave it unsewn. So then when you actually go to sew the rest, sometimes it seems backwards. Let me stack this a little bit. You're going to start here. You'll line up here, and you'll sew right to the edge. You'll line your next one up, and you're going to sew right to the edge. And then when you get to your last one, you start right here. See if I can get it to line up. My pieces there. There. Get them scrunched together. Sew this one all the way across, then come back and finish sewing this one. And that's how you put on that style of border or finish to your block. Once you have that all put together, get your backing, make sure you've cut it bigger than what you need, add your piece of batting, and I like to use Insulbrite, otherwise it takes 3 to 4 of my cotton batting to give me the same kind of insulation. I add my block to the top, I smooth it out. I'll take this little guy, I smooth it out, I pin it down, I stitch. And I'm stitch in the ditch. But any one of these are great for any kind of free motion quilting. Trim it, add the binding. My binding to make my loop is 6 inches long. And what I do is when I get to the end, as I'm attaching the binding, I have a piece that's hanging here. I measure 6 inches, I fold this, I cut it off, and then I just take the end and fold it up. Fold it over, stitch it. And then I come back and finish my binding. But you can look at our binding video on our potholder, show you exactly what I did. So now with that, hopefully you like this one. It is different. Like I said, the arrows are kind of fun. Called At the Square. Check it out at fabricjunctionjewels.blogspot.com. That's where all the cutting instructions are located. And then check out our website at junctionfabric.com. We'd love to hear from you, and thank you for watching us here at Fabric Junction.